So this is what 10,000 women look like. Wow. It's a real honor to be here today, to be asked to address all of you. Women who understand how important it is to step outside your comfort zone, to better yourselves and the communities you live in. It is also a particular privilege to share the stage with Mrs. Hillary Clinton, who will be coming after me, literally a leader among men. And my mommy is here, and my #1 cheerleader, and my amazing managers who have made everything that has happened in my life in the last 2 years possible. Thank you. I want to thank Imani and Andrea for introducing me. It's terrifying to be up here. And they did so sweetly, and also for paying it forward. This conference opened their eyes and their hearts, and they allowed it to change the course of their feet, and in turn, change the lives of other women. Thank you for that, and may we all be so receptive to life's opportunities. I was asked, thank you. I was asked to speak today in the spring. It was a very busy time, and I was still coming down off of the whole award season whirlwind. And I have to admit that I agreed to it only because it seemed like it was far, far away. But, you know, with things that are far, far away, with time, they get nearer and nearer. And as they got nearer and nearer, I got more and more afraid that I wouldn't know what to say. And then I thought, that's it. I'll talk about overcoming fear in order to achieve your goals and your dreams. And I thought it was perfect. But then, of course, I was crippled by the fear of talking about my fear. I tried to find other people's examples that illustrate the things I've learned about dealing with fear, but I couldn't remember any of them well enough to borrow them. I thought I would hire someone to write my speech, but then they'd know everything about me, including my neurosis. And then I thought I should find another subject to talk about. But then I realized I was doing that actor thing of trying to hide behind something. That's what we do as actors. We tell the truth by pretending to be someone else. So I finally managed to quell my fear and put aside my actor in order to tell you how I got to be an actor in the first place. I would like to dedicate this speech to my sister, who at this time is struggling with finding her purpose. I have 3 sisters, so I hope I haven't called anyone out. I've meant to write to her, I've meant to call her, but you know, our modern lifestyles can keep us so far away from the people we love most. And it seems that the more ways there are for us to communicate, the harder it is for us to do. So by sharing this with you today, I hope to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Dreams. The dictionary defines them as a series of thoughts, images, and sensations occurring in our brains when we are asleep or relaxing. The dreaming I would like to speak to is that glimpse of the thing you want to do that would make you feel most alive. A dream as a portal to your purpose. My dream was to be an actor from when I was really young, but I didn't always know it. Before I could call myself an actor, I had a lot of stuff to do. I had to unchain myself from indecision. I had to cut through fear, the fear of going after my dream, jump over my own ego and embrace vulnerability, and confront a great deal of imposter syndrome. The first step to becoming an actor was to choose it for myself. Now, I am very indecisive. I'm a Pisces, I'm astrologically predisposed to not being able to make up my mind. And I accept that. But finding out that I wanted to be an actor was made a little more difficult because I was growing up in Nairobi, Kenya in the 80s, where acting was just not a viable career path. Though I loved performance and making believe when I was little, nobody I knew around me was acting for a living. In school, it wasn't one of the professions you learned about. You could be a lawyer, a doctor, businessman or woman, secretary, policeman or woman, teacher, politician, but actor was never on the list. It didn't help that at the time, in the 80s, we only had one TV station, owned by the state, and it aired very boring programming for a child. Government propaganda. We witnessed things like which school the president had visited and distributed packets of milk, which church he had attended last Sunday. So my primary source for entertainment and performance, the world of performance, became the cassette tapes my cousins dubbed of American television and brought back home. I was enraptured by things like Kids Incorporated, Menudo, Different Strokes. But the characters I saw, they all had strange accents and lived in a faraway land called America. And in the 90s, we got our second TV station, and this one aired 95% foreign programming. I watched Rosa Salvaje from Mexico, Neighbors from Australia, and EastEnders from the UK. So while my imagination grew and my passion for performance expanded, it still was not a reflection of what was realistically possible for me to dream for myself. But when I watched The Color Purple and saw Oprah and Whoopi Goldberg, a seed was planted in my heart to be an actor. But I dared not water it in public. You see, being an actor wasn't an honorable thing to do, especially not for a politician's daughter. It was something that a child did and grown-up children did, but not anyone else. I pursued acting opportunities on the side, and as long as it was extracurricular and not my focus, it felt safe and acceptable. Mind you, my parents never put any pressure on me to be one thing or another, but it was the expectations from the larger society that kept me ashamed of the real desire of my heart. Soon enough, I was in such self-denial that I didn't believe that I wanted to be an actor after all. Then what did I want to be? As I grew older, I grew more and more confused about what I wanted for myself. And at some point in my adolescence, the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, seemed to be the only question on every adult's lips. There's so much pressure when we're younger to define ourselves by one thing, and I disagree with that. We can and should be able to define ourselves as many things for as long as possible, especially children. Anyway, I took to answering that question spontaneously in the hope that one day I would land on a gold mine of truth and by accident and finally know what my life was to be about. Entertainment lawyer, environmentalist, botanist, archaeologist, nothing really felt right. By the time I got to undergrad at Hampshire College in the US, here in Massachusetts, I was still looking for that practical, that useful, viable career path, the profitable type, the assured type. I went for the closest thing to acting that I could think of, film studies, because I figured it was better to want to hold the camera than to want to play in front of it. But I continued to act after school, and once that was done, that chapter, though I had learned a lot and I had been passionate about my education, I still did not feel that my life was in the right gear. I moved back to Kenya in a state of personal crisis, still wondering what my life was to be about. I was disappointed that at age 25, I was still feeling lost and confused. And I was worried that at the rate I was going, I would never figure it out. My indecision and self-denial were becoming healthy breeding grounds for fear. I sought advice from people I respected in Kenya, and as they dispelled their advice, I sat across from them, and I felt so envious of their clarity and their ability to pursue their dreams. Why couldn't I be like that? I coveted their dreams. When I met with a director, I wanted to be a director. When I met with a producer, I wanted to be a producer. I even met with a copyright lawyer and thought that was a dream for me. I looked for all sorts of jobs that were related. As a journalist, a TV anchor, an MC, nothing worked and nothing stuck. When people don't do what they want, they don't know what to do, said author Marty Rubin. There was no saving me from the agony of indecision until I stopped running away from myself and listened to myself. I took a time out, silenced the voices, stopped the chatter, and really thought about what would make me happy. I admitted it. First to myself, and then out loud. That what I wanted more than anything was to make believe for a living. I wept, as I am doing now, because it was so hard. It seems like this is what I do best, really. I wept because it was so hard to admit that I wanted to be something so improbable and impractical for a Kenyan like myself. It felt like a lofty pipe dream, really. But deep down, I was overjoyed because I was finally speaking the truth about what made me feel most alive. And it wasn't real until I shared it. John Lennon put it best: a dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality. Once it is uttered and you have taken ownership of it, the destination is taken care of and the journey can begin. And so I got down to the most important work, figuring out what steps would get me to being an actor, the actor I wanted so badly to be. I had an action plan, something to work towards, getting into the Yale School of Drama for acting training. To go after my goal to attend the Yale School of Drama meant that I would have to confront my fear of failure, of not being good enough. I knew it was a great acting program and I wanted to be at the best program possible if I was to really give this acting thing a fair shot. But I felt inexperienced. We didn't have a theater library in Kenya. For the audition, I worked on one monologue that I'd picked up in a speech class when I was 12, and on another from Shakespeare's Juliet, whom I had played when I was 14. Mind you, I'm 25 at this point. I had no other choices, and so I made do. As I boarded the plane to the US, there were naysayers in my head telling me I was crazy, that I shouldn't even bother. Over 900 people audition for 15 spots each year. And yet there was a part of me that knew I could do it, even when the part of me that said it was impossible was louder. Our dreams arise from our imaginations. They belong to us. We owe it to ourselves to try and realize them. To encourage myself, I wrote in my diary on the 23rd of August, 2008, I have this dream and desire to be an actor, and it dwarfs me. But it is my dream, goddammit. I made it up. How can what I dream up defeat me? And then I got into Yale, this prestigious school where acting heavyweights like Meryl Streep and Angela Bassett honed their craft. Mind you, at Yale, Meryl is so legendary that we just refer to her as the Streep. I was overjoyed. This was a gift I was given, an opportunity to immerse myself in my craft, surrounded by people of equal and greater talent. They had accepted me, and I had to prove to them and to myself that I deserved to be there. I couldn't afford to fail. I had traveled too far for that, and I had defied what was expected of me in my community. Too much was at stake. My dream was in motion, and it was very much in my own hands now. And I had every intention to work hard and excel at everything I did. But I would very quickly learn that in acting school, things weren't that straightforward. Acting is not like math, where there is only one correct answer to the problem, and once you've figured out the formula, you're all set. In acting, like in life, sometimes coming up with the wrong answer to the problem is the best way to figure out the formula for yourself. In acting school, you are expected to fail, and fail publicly a lot. It is the constant exposure to failure that frees you from the strongholds of the ego and allows you to embrace vulnerability. And it is in embracing vulnerability that you can surprise yourself in performance and share something really special about human nature. I'll give you an example. Imagine now that you've been singled out from this crowd, just as you are. You're told that your goal is to make everybody laugh. The instructions are to leave the room and return with enthusiasm and do something great without having a clue what that might be. And you can't use words or props or anything. Now, I don't know about you, but that terrifies me, especially because laughter is the one thing that an audience never lies about. They only give it to you when they're really tickled. This was an exercise from a clown class at Yale. Now, not the painted clown with the painted face and the red nose and the big shoes and baggy trousers that you find at a circus. No, the clown I'm talking about is the simple, innocent fool that lives inside all of us. The child within us that we've spent most of our lives hiding under layers of intelligence, sensibility, sophistication, and social cool. The one who gets great joy in making others happy and finds the fun in turning off and on a light bulb and is devastated by the pop of a balloon. There is nothing as embarrassing and uncomfortable as trying to make people laugh and hearing nothing but silence in response. When it was my turn to get up and do the exercise, I tried all sorts of buffoonery. I flapped my arms like a bird, I rolled on the floor, I jumped up and down, and I didn't believe I was particularly funny, and I was desperate to find something to hide behind. I was fresh out of ideas, and there had still not been a single laugh in the room. Eventually, my teacher called me out, Chris Bays. He said, "You failed, Lupita, haven't you?" And at that point, I let it all go and broke down and cried audibly. It was only then that everyone in the room burst out laughing. Because I had finally allowed myself to be honest and truthful and open with them. My inner fool came out to play only once I had put my ego aside. And so, it was not until I had opened myself up to the possibility of failing that I was able to find success in clown class. Without the possibility of being bad, you will never be extraordinary. And so, I resolved to operate from a sense of self that was louder than my critic and faster than my worry. It is only in that space that you can truly be free and innovate. Right before I graduated, the opportunity to play Patsey was offered to me. After a rigorous audition period, when Steve McQueen, the director, called me to give me the part, I remember I sat down on the pavement, overjoyed and horrified by the prospect of working alongside such seasoned artists. It was a dream come true, but the saboteur in me would have me believe that it had come true too fast and that I was not prepared for it. I was suffering from typical imposter syndrome, a pattern of toxic thoughts that tells you how lucky you are to have everybody fooled that you are good at what you do, up until now. Your cover is about to be blown this time, and they will know that you are nothing but an imposter of talent. Now, this was to be my first film, and judging by the story and the people involved, I knew it was no small potatoes. I couldn't possibly get away with this one. It was a big deal, and I wasn't. I felt small, like an underdog, dwarfed by everyone else in it. I had no experience working on this level, I thought. How was I supposed to act alongside Mr. Kinky Boots, Mr. Magneto, and Troy himself? Who was I? I was certain Steve had made a mistake and that he would fire me any day. And this was a real fear of mine. It kept me up at night. In fact, I didn't have a good night's rest from the day I got the role until the day I got wrapped on set. Before I left to shoot the film, I reached out to a close friend of mine and a classmate. I asked her where all the abandon and courage had disappeared to from all my time at Yale. What had I learned, and why wouldn't it show up when I needed it the most? My friend breathed with me. A good friend does that. And she reminded me that it was all there, that I needed to trust myself in order for what I had learned to serve me. Patsey's point of view had to matter to me more than my own. She reminded me to lead not with my fear, but with my hope. When you're living on purpose, the size of your human experience has got nothing to do with it. You see, when you're fearful, we spend more time worrying about things that don't yet exist and very little on building on what already does. The solution is not to eradicate fear. That would be nice, but fear does play a role in keeping us safe. The solution is to recognize fear with compassion and act in spite of it. That is what courage is, after all. Doing the thing you fear because what you are to gain is worth the risk. 12 years a slave was worth the risk. Now, after the aftermath of 12 years was something I could not have foreseen. I definitely expected it to be an important film and a fantastic starting point for me in my professional career, but I never expected to receive all the recognition and accolades that came with it. As such, I had to make space in my heart to receive all the good stuff. And this was not easy. They don't teach you that at school. I had had a life of believing I was afraid of failure, and now here I was, faced squarely with the fear of success. I was afraid of success because I did not know what might lie on the other side of it. With success comes an added expectation, and with that comes lofty responsibility. Lately, I have been afraid of not being able to handle all these new expectations. I have been afraid that my weaknesses have no place in the world of these newfound successes, and that I have to become a super version of me to keep up with the versions of myself that stare back at me from magazine covers. To the world, I have achieved the pinnacle of success in my field, and yet I still have the rest of my life to go. It is at this point that I have to constantly remind myself of how I got here. Through hard work, faith, daring to dream, and systematically slaying the dragons that are self-doubt, self-hate, and self-denial. I must carry on my personal journey and dream more. Dream again. They disguise themselves, these dragons, every time as being different, but they're exactly the same. And I must ultimately trust that my life has equipped me with all the tools and weapons I need to deal with them. Your life is equipping you now with all you need to slay your dragons and realize your dreams and goals. More and more women today are coming alive, diversifying their career paths, defying the narrow expectations the world has in place for them. We continue to fight for equality, for justice, for freedom, for compassion. And we achieve the most when we are awakened and responsive to the desires of our individual hearts. It is then that we can really be a part of a whole and share our tools to fulfill the bigger picture of a better tomorrow. 7 tools I offer you today. Recognize and articulate your fears to yourself. Then look for what you love and articulate that to yourself and to others. Do this often, and your love will grow stronger than your fear. 2, reach out to your stretcher bearers. This is a concept I carried with me from a high school Bible teaching. It speaks of a time when Jesus was teaching a crowd of people that had come from all over. Some men came late, carrying their paralyzed friend on a stretcher. It was so crowded around Jesus, so they decided to go up on the roof, take out the tiles, and lower the man into the middle of the crowd in front of Jesus. When Jesus saw their faith and how much love they had, he cured the man instantly of his paralysis. My teacher, in her message, encouraged us to make sure we too had those stretcher bearers in our lives, at least 4 people who would carry us to healing and safety when we can't do it for ourselves. The people who will remind you that you are not alone when your emotions get the best of you. 3, ask questions of yourself, for yourself, and listen out everywhere for the answers. Take reading recommendations from people you respect. It was in sitting in a talkback with a documentary filmmaker that I learned about the book Fight Your Fear and Win by Don Green. And it very literally got me out of my crisis before I went to Yale. That and the book Map for Life, a life management book by Glenn McQuirk that my mother insisted for 5 years I read before I finally picked it up, and I never regretted it. I go back to these books often. 4, do not underestimate the power of writing your dreams and goals down. Right before I got cast in 12 Years a Slave, I wrote in my diary what kind of work I wanted to do. I envisioned, this was on May 4th, 2012, that I wanted to make meaningful films that affect change in people's understanding of and commitment to the world we live in. I also wrote that I wanted to visit New Orleans for a week. On May 13th, I booked 12 Years a Slave, and on June 6th, I would be in Louisiana working on the film for 5 weeks. 5, breathe, meditate, pray, be still with your soul. There is a force within us that surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds us together. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in Star Wars. I believe it. 6, go for it and always allow failure to be an option. True freedom is being without anxiety about imperfection, says Zen Master Sengsan. And right now, I am learning to deeply value my human right to be imperfect. No matter who we are or what stage of achievement we are at, I think that it is healthy to always have some perfection to work towards. It gives us perspective and also gives us something worth living another day for. 7, finally, step forward and repeat it all. With each step you take, with each new challenge you face, expect yourself to learn these lessons again and again. Do not be disappointed in yourself when it feels like this time it is harder or different. It will always be harder or different if you are growing. When you feel overwhelmed by this, remind yourself that you feel despair because you still care. Step and repeat. Step and repeat. It doesn't ever get comfortable, but it does get familiar. Thank you.